The Maya are. What tense is the word are here?
Past.
Past tense?
Present.
Wouldn't that be were? The Maya were?
Huh?
No, it says the Maya are, which is what?
Present.
It's present tense. The Maya are Middle American Indians who live, present tense, in southern Mexico, Guatemala, and northern Belize. We're talking about the people there, not the civilization. Mayan civilization is no more. But the people still live. In the early 21st century, there were more than 5 million Maya who spoke. Wait, they switched tense. Was that an error on purpose?
On purpose.
It says in the early 21st century. Aren't we in the early 21st century? So shouldn't that say speak? Present tense. Come on, Britannica, don't change tense on us. The editor missed it. Minor mistake. But it matters. They speak about 30 different Mayan languages. Yes?
They also have, there were more than 5 million Maya in the 21st century. There were.
Yeah. Well, in the early, well, when they took the numbers, that's already past tense. So I guess I'll let that go. I know what you're saying. I like it. Good catch. They could probably say there are more than, or they could say there were more than, because they did take the numbers already. It's already in the past. But it's not far in the past. We've only been in the early 21st century for 22 years. And 3 days, 4 days? 5.
What if they said spoke because they used to say more languages than that?
No, they who speak, because we're present tense, this should be speak. So they speak about 30 different Mayan languages. Most of them also speak Spanish. Why? Why do most Mayans who live in southern Mexico, Guatemala, and northern Belize also speak Spanish? Why? You got it?
I was going to ask about the daughter of the office.
Sure. Anybody? Why do they speak Spanish? If they're Mayans, why don't they speak one of the 30 dialects or languages of the Mayan civilization? I have 2 people mumbling. Raise your hand if you want to answer, then speak up. Yes?
Because where they have to speak like they
Why? Okay, who's they?
do. The Mayans.
So the Mayans have to speak like the Mayans do?
Oh no, the Mayans have to speak like the people in where they live in that.
But the Mayans are from Mexico, Guatemala, and northern Belize. Why can't they speak Mayan languages?
Because the majority of people that live there speak Spanish.
Why do they speak Spanish? If the native people from those places spoke one of these 30 Mayan languages and still speak, right? One of those 30 Mayan languages, why do they bother speaking Spanish? Why do they speak Spanish?
Is it because of Christopher Columbus?
Look at the next sentence. Who speaks Spanish?
Spanish.
Spanish people. What did the Spaniards do in the 1500s? They conquered Mexico and Central America and much of South America. So guess what, Mayans? You used to speak Mayan. You are gonna speak Spanish now because we have conquered you. You're welcome, by the way. You are now saved. If they converted to Catholicism, right?
Well,
So,
kind of right.
they should speak Spanish because their conquerors speak Spanish. Yes? Listen, it's common for conquerors, they move in an area, they conquer it, that their language becomes the language. Why am I not speaking some sort of Native American language right now. Why aren't I speaking Algonquin? Or
Because we got conquered by the British.
because the Native Americans were conquered. And fortunately, there are still some tribes that survive, but they weren't on the good end of the negotiations, the winning end of the negotiations, were they? So we speak English. Before the Spanish conquest of Mexico and Central America in the 1500s, the Maya had one of the greatest civilizations of the Western Hemisphere. They practiced agriculture. They built great stone buildings and pyramid temples and worked gold and copper. Gold and copper are malleable. And I hope I'm spelling that right. It's close enough. Malleable. You can check it later. Malleable. What does that mean? Does anybody know? Yes?
It means you can make it into shapes easily.
Yes, it can be shaped. It can be worked. It's easily worked. If I had a hunk of copper and I struck it with something, it would put a dent in it pretty easily. Does that make sense? It can be bent easily. That's why the wiring in our walls are made of copper. Have you ever used one of the stand-up vacuum cleaners at their house? And you gotta wrap the cord back around the little thingies, right, that hold it for you? Would you be able to do that if the copper wire in that, wrapped in the rubber in the cord, wasn't malleable?
No.
No, it wouldn't be flexible. There's a reason we use copper for wiring. It's because it's malleable, it's flexible. And of course it's conductive, right? It conducts electricity better than pretty much anything else. Maybe silver. Silver's a better conductor. Of course, silver costs more, right? So you use copper. Anyway, they were working gold and copper. They studied the planets and the stars and used their observations of the heavens to make a complex and very accurate calendar system. Has anybody ever watched the movie 2012?
I remember that. I've never watched it.
It's a disaster movie from 2012. No? Raise your hand if you've never seen it. All right, now keep your hands up. Hold on. So you've never seen the movie 2012. Put your hand down if you don't like disaster movies. Ah. So everybody with their hand up right now needs to go watch 2012. Find it on a streaming service or something. It's fun. It's a fun disaster movie. It's good.
I know why.
Yeah. So the reason why. Why?
Because the Mayan calendar ended in 2012.
Yes!
You have mentioned that in class before.
Have I? Okay. Well, somebody remembered it, or you remembered it on your own, right? From when you learned
I
it.
heard it even before you even said it.
Good.
Disasters.
So the Mayan calendar, very accurate. And everybody knows, right? Wow, those Mayans, they came up with some really accurate calendars. Uh-oh. Their longest lasting calendar ends in 2012. What does it mean? The world's going to end. So they make a disaster movie, right? To play on that paranoia. These people had scientific and mathematical prowess for sure, but they were also very, very superstitious.
Oh, that
Okay.
was
But even if they weren't, what does it mean if their last calendar ends in 2012? Maybe they just didn't make a calendar that went further out than that because they didn't need it. Maybe if their civilization had lasted, maybe they just make another calendar, right? Heck, the calendar in my house ends January of next year because it's got the 12 months of this year, right? And it has the previous month and then the next month, right? So does that mean the world is going to end at the end of January of 2024?
Yes.
No.
Strike back hard.
No.
With all that's happening, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, fair. It
That's-
really possibly could.
Now think about that. Think about that. Hasn't it always been so? If you look at any period in human history, aren't there times when many things bad are happening at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are there any good things happening right now
Probably.
Yeah.
that make the news? No, of course not. We always focus on the bad things, right? I guarantee there's plenty of good things happening right now. Right now, you're learning about the Maya civilization. That's pretty cool. So it's not all bad. All right. Where was I? Down here. The Maya also developed a system of mathematics. Their writing used hieroglyphics, or a picture script. You guys know what hieroglyphics are, right?
It's
Same
a
stuff.
writing system.
Yes, same thing that the Egyptians used, right?
Special classes.
We probably talk about that later. The Maya, along with the Aztec of Mexico and the Inca of Peru, had advanced civilizations at the time of the Spanish arrival. Both the Aztec and Inca were late empires, meaning they didn't become prominent and successful until around 1300 AD, through the time the Spanish arrived. It says there are capstones of a sequence of civilizations in Central America and in the Andes of South America, respectively. Capstones, meaning that that was the end. It capped that period. Why? Because the Spanish came and wrecked it. Or, if you're of the other persuasion, the Spanish came and civilized the pagans. Right? It's all about perspective. But the Maya exhibited a cultural continuity spanning more than 2,000 years. That means continuity. Cultural continuity. What does that mean? It's not a trick question. What does cultural continuity mean?
The culture is like changing a bit and whatnot.
The culture's maybe changing a little bit, but it's continuing. Continuity means it's continuing. The Mayan culture didn't die. It continued for more than 2,000 years, and many aspects of their culture continue to today. For sure.